In today's episode, the flagship of the 1981 Ford range, the Ford Fairlane. Hello, welcome back. If you're new to Quarterlight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world. Today we're in Australia, looking at a Ford all-range brochure for 1981, January 1981. In fact, we've gone through most of the brochure now, and we're up to the luxury version, the Ford Fairlane. Let's have a look at that now. So this is where we're up to. We left last week looking at the lovely Falcons and Fairmonts. If you missed any of the episodes, I'll do a link at the end. We're now up to the Ford Fairlane, a distinctive difference in prestige motoring. This would be the third generation, or the ZJ series, which ran from 79 to 82. So we're coming to the end of that series here in 1981. And really this sort of generation really marked what was starting to become the end of the V8s, really. The ZK series came out in March 82 and deleted the 5.8 litre V8. And later on, they deleted the 4.9 litre V8 as well. So this was kind of like the last roll of the dice, really, for those big V8 engines. If we just zoom in on the image, so when we zoom in on it, we can see we've got this sort of quad headlight setup, which is kind of like distinct in this from the Falcons. No trim levels, actually, interestingly, by this stage. We've just got one model with a choice of different engines, which we'll certainly have a look at it in a moment or later on. But let's turn the page, see what else we can see. So when we do turn the page, we've got a little bit of a side image of this Fairlane. It says, reflecting the requirements of today's prestige car driver. One thing to make clear is I am no expert on Australian cars whatsoever. My knowledge is more on European cars. So anything you can add, if you're very knowledgeable on these cars, please jot in the comments. Always interesting to read. Now, we're saying this is like the flagship of the range, but there's also the LTD, isn't there? But there's no mention of the LTD in this brochure. So if you do know why, let me know as well, because it's always interesting to learn more about these interesting Australian cars. And like I say, I really like the Australian cars. That's why I try and feature them on the programme, to be honest with you. They're just something different, and particularly at this period when it's like the last throw of the dice of those big V8s, just makes them a little bit more interesting for me. Anyway, let's zoom in on the main image. So yes, at this stage we've got a very square looking design, almost like a move away from American influences in some way. The previous version looks as if it would be just as home on American roads as Australian ones. I've said this before when we look at the Falcons. I love how much tyre is showing on these cars at this particular period. Never been a fan of low profiles, to be honest with you. We can see if we can clear the camera up a little bit there. We can see the side badging is saying Fairlane in rather large letters. Took me a while, I do apologise, to actually get that to clear up a little bit. And I guess if we swing the camera this way, we get a extra little look at that front end treatment. Very 80s, isn't it? It's only a move away from 70s designs, although this one came out in 79. Then a sweep to the rear of the car. I always think it's surprising how much room there is here between the door and the wheel arch. Gives it a little bit of an unusual look, doesn't it? Anyway, let's turn the image. Sorry, not turn the image, turn the page. And what do we get? This unusual sort of ranch farming scene. It says, a car for the big country. Not sure if maybe this is representing some kind of like auction scene. Maybe this is the big boss in his Fairlane. Whether he's buying or selling, we will never know. Very distinctive rear lights, aren't they, on the Fairlane? Unfortunately, quite often in Australian brochures they choose to photograph them at night or at dusk for whatever reason. But yeah, interesting taillights, aren't they, with that sort of like vertical lines going along it. Big light as well, and then big chrome hubcaps there really show off the car in an air of what it is, after all, a luxury car of its time. And then the main picture proper showing some of the specifications. Like I said, only one trim level at this time. It tells us Ford Fairlane, a tradition of prestige motoring. Lovely seats, they do look very, very comfortable. We'll start with the specs and then we'll come back to the images, I think. So it tells us standard equipment highlights the engine. So the standard engine was a 4.1 litre alloy head crossflow 6-cylinder engine with a 3-speed T-bar automatic. There are big V8 options which we'll have a look at later, and different transmissions no doubt. Wheels and brakes, styled steel road wheels with full wheel covers. Tells you about the radial ply tyre size. We get 4-wheel power disc brakes, exterior limited slip differential, twin quartz halogen headlights, power steering, left and right hand exterior rear view mirror with interior remote control, interior soft feel twin spoke steering wheel. Instruments include voltmeter, oil pressure, temperature and fuel gauges. For entertainment we get an AM/FM stereo radio cassette player with power aerial, digital clock with date and month display on demand, integrated air conditioning with ducting to rear compartment, tinted side and rear glass, tinted band laminated windscreen, intermittent wipers, outboard inertia reel seat belts front and rear, hazard flashers, outboard passenger grab handles. And here is our lovely interior. I don't know if it's in the same sort of feel as a luxury car of Europe, but nevertheless those seats do look extremely comfortable, and certainly there's going to be a certain amount of ruggedness built into this car to deal with the rougher Australian roads. And then a look on the inside of that dash. I'm always interested in Australian Fords that they always like to label everything. There's no symbol, they actually write the word, which is certainly a little bit different. If we look at the dash though, rather unusually for what is a luxury car, we don't get a rev counter on there. And then this lady with this very much of its time haircut is showing us what it refers to as the moon roof, which is an optional extra. And then a glimpse at the rear, showing here that it looks like there's a vast amount of legroom for rear passengers. We unfortunately don't know how far forward those front seats are, but there does look like a lot of room. A lovely big centre armrest for those rear passengers, and what looks like very, very thick carpeting there as well. A sign, of course, of luxury. Head restraints, if we look at, they look like they originally started off as the sort of cheapo A-frame head restraints, but they've got this sort of like comfort front part on the front. And as there is only one spec level, that actually takes us then to the options and specifications. So this episode isn't going to be too long, but let's have a look at those options, and it also shows us the options for the engines as well. So convenience and appearance equipment, we get vinyl seat coverings as a no-cost option. Not entirely sure why you would pick that, unless maybe he was using it as a taxi, but it seems awfully nice to be using as a taxi, doesn't it? And vinyl seat coverings in Australia don't seem like a great mix. We can option leather seat coverings though. Metallic paint is a no cost option, which is nice that we don't have to pay extra for metallic, and we can get those Volante Sports alloy road wheels as an option. Certainly an interesting option to go for. Power equipment, so power operated windows are an option, power operated door locks an option, power operated moonroof an option. So you can really specify this to be an extremely high spec luxury vehicle. Of course, for its time, it doesn't seem like a lot today, of course. Then we've got the heavy duty equipment, so there's something called the Outback Pack, which is an option. We'll have a look to see what we get for that later. Class 1 towing pack as an option, heavy duty pack for towing as an option, and a Class 2 towing pack as an option. I'm sure they would have been used as tow vehicles. Obviously this is the day before the big SUVs became popular as towing vehicles, and I'm sure with the big engines, I'm sure they towed quite adequately. So that then takes us to the engine and transmission combinations. So the 4.1 litre cross-flow 6-cylinder engine with a 3-speed T-boy automatic was your standard piece of kit. You could also option that to have a 3-speed automatic column shift for no extra cost if you wanted. But then you could spec it higher. You could go for a 4.9 litre V8 with a 3-speed automatic column shift or a 3-speed T-boy automatic, both as options. And then finally you could go all the way and get a 5.8 litre V8 with a 3-speed T-boy automatic as an option. So no manual options, which could explain why there's no rev counter, but still it does seem a little bit weird to omit that on a luxury car. But interesting cars, particularly if you optioned it for that big 5.8 litre V8. And we've only got another year or so before the car is renewed and we lose those big V8s, rather sadly. And then when we move the camera down a bit, we can see the exact sizes. So the 4.1 litre 6-cylinder standard option was actually a 4092cc engine. The 4.9 was a 4947cc engine, and the 5.8 V8 was a 5771cc unit. And just before I forget, the Outback pack consists of heavy duty suspension, heavy duty rear axle, engine sump guard and rear axle shock absorber protection plate. Heavy duty suspension consists of larger diameter heavy duty shock absorbers and springs, increased ride height, increased diameter rear stabilizer bar. I wonder how many of these were actually optioned for the Outback pack. I guess if you were living out of the city, maybe that was something you considered. So that comes to the end of the Fairlane. Next week we'll be looking at the Ford recreational and light commercial vehicles in the final episode of this particular Ford of Australia 1981 brochure series. So there we go, the beautiful Ford Fairlane. I would love to drive one of these, I must admit. I wonder if how many of them are still plodding around Australia. Please let me know. Maybe the prices are becoming a little bit more pricey as these cars become more collectible. But thank you so much for watching today. Bit of a shorter episode for your Ford Friday episode. So I hope you enjoyed this shorter episode. We try and mix in longer and shorter episodes, but because this was only one spec level, it made sense to make it a shorter episode. Members will now know that you can actually see episodes earlier, so you can actually see this episode before Friday. If you are one of those, thank you so much for supporting the episode. I really appreciate you. And if you want to become a member, it's only a very small fee. Each month, or in fact if you just want to do it for 1 month, that is perfectly okay. We don't offer you too much. Like I say, at the moment we're offering videos earlier than everyone else, and then as time goes by I'm going to try and think of other ways, maybe little episodes just for members only, because I really appreciate you, and really the members are the people that really keep the channel going, so thank you so much for those. We'll also end by saying, if you've not done already, please consider subscribing, and I certainly appreciate all those who have subscribed as much as the members. That is a really good way to keep in touch with the channel, and thank you for all the comments you make. It really makes the channel an interesting thing for car enthusiasts. I read everyone's comment, and obviously there's communication that goes on within the comments, and thank you so much for that. It really does make a nice car community on the channel. Quarterlight is a very friendly face, friendly channel. Anyone is welcome no matter what. But thank you so much for watching today. I'm going to add other boxes on here now. One will be for the full series. If you missed any episode, one is usually a random box. Maybe I'll try and make that an Australia core box as well, so you can click on those and watch further episodes. But thank you so much for watching today. Please do take care. We'll see you very soon. All the best and goodbye.